Throughout MLB history, it was not uncommon to see pitchers lose 20 or more games in a single season. This is due to the fact that historically, starting pitchers threw much more in the past than they do today. For most of the 1900s, one could expect a pitcher to easily start well over 30 games in a season, even over 40. For context, in the entire decade of the 1970s, there were 46 occurrences of a pitcher starting at least 40 games in a single season. In the past 35 years, there have been exactly 0. For more context, in the 1970s again, there were exactly 40 instances of a pitcher throwing at least 300 innings in a single season. There had been 0 since 1981. That was a long explanation to simply say pitchers used to start more and throw more innings in those starts. With that in mind, obviously, the more batters a pitcher faces in a game, the more opportunity for him to allow runs to the opposing team, and the likelier he would take the loss, so we can see why 20-game losers were somewhat common in the past. Before continuing, if you're new to baseball and don't know how a pitcher can earn a loss, it's quite simple. To quote MLB.com, a pitcher receives a loss when a run that is charged to him proves to be the go-ahead run in the game, giving the opposing team a lead it never gives up. Basically, if a pitcher allows the opponent to take the lead, and the opposing team never relinquishes the lead, that pitcher will take the loss. While we used to commonly see 20-game losers, they've become a near extinct breed in the last 40 plus years. Case in point, during the dead ball era of Major League Baseball, which was 1900 to 1919, there were 107 cases of a pitcher losing 20 or more games in a season. Across the next 60 seasons from 1920 to 1980, there were 97 20-game losers, and the majority of those 97 came prior to 1950. I stopped with 1980 because for some time, that was the last season a pitcher lost 20 games. Throughout MLB history, the league never went more than 3 seasons without a 20-game loser. There would be at least one per year. The frequency of them slowed down in the 1920s, but after Brian Kingman of the 1980 Oakland Athletics finished the season with an 8-20 record, that was it. In the years following 1980, there were multiple pitchers who lost 19 games, but nobody was able to hit 20. With bullpen usage continuously on the rise, what was once a consistent staple in Major League Baseball suddenly became extinct. Through the 2023 season, not a single pitcher has had the unfortunate distinction of losing 20 games in a single season in the near past half century. That is, with one exception. Since 1980, there has been just a single instance of a pitcher losing 20 games, and that pitcher is Mike Maroth. Mike Maroth was a starter who played in Major League Baseball for 6 seasons from 2002 to 2007. He pitched mostly for the Detroit Tigers, but also spent time with the St. Louis Cardinals. In his career, Maroth went 50-67 across 150 games started and over 900 innings pitched. He recorded an ERA of 5.05, adjusted ERA of 86, a whip of 1.460, struck out 4.3 batters per 9 innings, and earned 4.0 WAR. Not the most noteworthy career, but hey, 6 seasons in the major leagues is a big accomplishment, and he was decent for the Tigers for a number of years. Although, one of those seasons as a Tiger is when Maroth had the unfortunate luck of making history. If you know a thing or two about the 2000s Tigers, you probably already know that it occurred in 2003. That season, Mike Maroth started 33 games and threw 193 1/3 innings. He recorded an ERA of 5.73, adjusted ERA of 75, a whip of 1.453, struck out 4.1 batters per 9 innings, and earned 0.2 WAR. I am genuinely surprised that he earned positive WAR, but anyone that pitched that many innings for the 2003 Tigers deserves something. Anyway, what was Mike Maroth's win-loss record? 9-21. 21 losses in only 33 starts. It's not bad enough that Maroth didn't just lose 20, he managed to squeeze an extra one in. While Brian Kingman was the last pitcher prior to lose 20, the last pitcher before Maroth that lost more than 20 games came in 1974, aka 50 years ago. To be perfectly fair, if there was any team in the past half century that would produce a pitcher with that many losses, the 2003 Tigers would have been my first guess. Quick side note for anyone not aware, the 2003 Tigers lost 119 games. the second most by any team since 1900. When thinking about it, it's kind of astounding that Maroth lost that many games in the first place. Yes, it was a poor season, but it wasn't as if it was the worst ever. A 75 adjusted ERA in 33 games started is bad, but it's happened 12 times since 1981, including 7 times in the 21st century. Shout out to James Shields for being on this list twice. So other pitchers in recent times have posted an equal or even worse season than Maroth did, but he was the only one with 20 losses. Does this mean the Tigers were simply that incompetent in run support and holding leads during Maroth's starts? Well, let's go through his games that year. Through the first month of the season, all Maroth did was tie the Major League record for most losses before the month of May, losing all 6 of his starts. Some of those games deserved losses, but some didn't. On opening day, Maroth threw 7 innings, allowing 2 runs, and Detroit lost 3-1. 2 starts later, Maroth matched that performance by turning in another 7-inning, 2-run game, and the Tigers lost 4-2 after the bullpen blew it. 2 more starts later, Maroth turned in another fine outing. He allowed 3 runs across 8 innings of work, as the Tigers lost on a walk-off error. In his 7th start of the season on May 1st, Maroth took a no-hitter into the 8th inning against the Baltimore Orioles before Baltimore exploded for 6 runs off him in the bullpen in the 8th inning, eventually winning 6-4. I think I ought to mention that 7th start was originally scheduled for April 30th, but got pushed back a day due to a rainout. It's as if the baseball gods prevented him from being the first and only pitcher ever to lose 7 games before May. In Maroth's next start on May 6th, he threw 7 innings, allowing 3 runs, and the Tigers were 4 outs away from giving him his first victory before the bullpen imploded yet again, allowing, ironically, the Orioles again to tie the game. Detroit would eventually score a run in the 9th to win, giving Maroth a no decision. In his 9th start, Maroth turned in another respectable performance, allowing 3 runs over 6 1/3 innings. However, the Tigers themselves only managed to score 1 run, giving Maroth his 8th loss of the season. 5 days later, he allowed 6 runs over 5 innings to the Seattle Mariners to pick up his 9th loss of the year. Nearly a third of the way through the season, and Mike Maroth had an 0-9 record with a 5.73 ERA in 10 starts. The crazy part is, of those 10 starts, half of them featured him allowing no more than 3 runs. He had stretches of fine pitching, but every time, either the hitting went ice cold or the bullpen imploded. Finally, in his 11th start of the year, Maroth won his first game of the season, allowing 2 runs in 7 innings against the Chicago White Sox. Immediately following that win, did Maroth lose 2 straight games, one where he only lasted 1 1/3 innings, and one where he allowed only 2 runs across 6 innings. That was the theme of his season so far. Often he would have a poor performance and rightfully earn a loss, but other times he was excellent and the Tigers failed to support him. Thankfully, a pitcher can only be that unlucky for so long, and eventually his record evened out. Through his first 16 starts of the season, Maroth was 2-12 with a 4.99 ERA. Across his final 17 starts, he went 7-9 with a 6.39 ERA. Yes, his record was much better with a worse ERA. I don't get it either. Overall in 2003, Maroth had 16 starts where he threw at least 5 innings and allowed no more than 3 runs. Specifically, in those 16 games, he allowed 35 runs in 103 innings for a sharp 3.6 ERA. Despite a great ERA in those starts, overall, he went 6-8 with 2 no decisions. For perspective, a 3.06 ERA would have been the 4th lowest among American League starting pitchers. He was legitimately a top 5 pitcher in half of his starts and has a losing record to show for it. It's easy to see how Maroth picked up so many losses, but it still just blows my mind how terrible the Tigers were in games he started. I'm sure many people are wondering if we'll ever see another 20-loss pitcher. I bet a lot of people are going to say no. After all, in the past near half century, we've only had one, and it occurred on arguably the worst team of all time. Despite that, I do think we'll see another one sooner rather than later. While Maroth has been the only 20-game loser since 1980, there's been 15 pitchers to lose 19 games. The most recent coming just 2 years ago in 2022, when Patrick Corbin of the Washington Nationals went 6-19. It'll take a perfect storm for a pitcher to accomplish this again, but for now, Mike Maroth will hold the distinction of being the last pitcher to lose 20 games in a single season.